Hello guys, welcome to another video. In this particular video, I want us to talk about some of the common mistakes that I made as a beginner web developer, which I wouldn't want you to make, or which you should try as much as possible to avoid. And in this particular video, I am going to discuss these mistakes from my own perspective. One of the most common mistake, or one of the most common made mistakes by beginners, is that they fail to plan. For example, if you are, handled or given a coding problem that you have to solve, most beginners lash into writing the code without even, first of all, drafting the solution. Writing code is like you talking. And for you to talk, you must know the specific thing that you're going to talk about. You must draft it out. And one of the most important things that I learned is that you must have the solution even before you start coding for you to be a good developer. For example, if you are, making a calculator web application, you must know which specific components, or how are you going to divide various components in that web application. You must divide everything, or you must understand how are you going to solve most of these problems so that you can start writing the code. And one of the most easiest way is to break down the problem into the small. For example, if you look at a problem whole summary, you're going to be overwhelmed. One of the easiest way to get out of that loop is segment or divide that problem into small problems, and then one by one start solving each one of those small problems. Number two is fear of failure. I still have this fear to date, but the good thing is right now I know it's a mistake, and I'm trying as much as possible to fight it. Fear of failure is where you have fear against, for example, someone else viewing your code and kind of giving it criticism. This is where you kind of feel that you're not good enough, or what you did would have been done better by someone else. And this kind of fear, what it does to you is it creates a big barrier to you and perfecting your skills. You'll find that you're not going to, for example, create a portfolio project because you don't feel that you're capable enough. So learn away from this one. This one is a big one. You're going to end up not having any portfolio projects because you feel like you can't do a wholesome project. I often see these comments. For example, there are people who out there, for example, have run web development, yes, but they don't feel like they know much enough. For example, if you tell them to make a web application that is going to do ABCD, they're going to tell you that they don't even know where to start. But the thing is, they do know. The problem is the fear. And number three, and I kind of think that this is a very important point. Always prioritize documentation over everything else. Documentation is very important, and out there is, for example, every framework, every programming language has its own documentation. Documentation is like the original paper. All the other sources of, for example, explanations are secondary. They are secondary interpretation. The only tough thing about documentation is it's quite hard to understand. But if you master it, you're going to find it very easy to navigate. And I'm actually going to tie this point with most people. For example, most people nowadays are not using documentation. All they are doing, they're going to these large these kind of tools like ChatGPT, LLMs. They are going to tools like ChatGPT and using them to, for example, create code. And I have to be honest, for example, as a beginner, you should never use ChatGPT. You should only use it when you want it to explain a certain snippet of code on what it's doing. Using it to generate code is actually going to make your mind lazy. That is the same thing I say to, for example, mathematics students who want to use calculators when they don't even know 1 + 1. For example, if you start using calculators when you're doing like basic math, like basic maths, like for example 10 minus 8, you're never going to train your mind enough to understand or to persevere or to be persistent enough to solve maybe 20 plus 10, because you've from the word go, you've trained it that the only way to solve this is by using a calculator. The same applies to people who use, for example, tools like ChatGPT to generate code, especially if they want to master code. Only use it to explain that code, because by using it, you can at least understand what the code is actually doing. Personally, I don't um, I don't I don't recommend using ChatGPT when you are running, because you're going to be very lazy. You're going to kind of you're never going to actually learn anything, because your mind is just going to be lazy. And personally, I don't use it. I don't use ChatGPT to generate any code. Yeah, because there's a lot of explanation out there. You should only use ChatGPT. The only moment I use ChatGPT is, for example, when I've found a snippet of code, for example, from maybe Stack Overflow, but I actually don't understand how that developer, or what that specific developer who gave the snippet is saying. So by doing so, I can copy it and take it to ChatGPT, and it's going to help me kind of like understand what the specific line of every code is doing. So I mainly use it to explain my code. I can never use it to like create a snippet of code. Yeah. The other point is, like, most people nowadays are copy pasting code, and to be honest, there's this question. I actually knew the answer, but there is this one time I used ChatGPT to generate a snippet of code, and the number of lines it gave me to solve a very simple thing, the number of lines it gave me to solve a very simple thing, the like the problem, the code was even taking like more time to run than my own solution. And that is one of the reasons why I advise beginners not to copy codes from anywhere. Just try as much as possible to create your own code, because the moment you start copying, your mind is definitely going to be lazy, and you don't want your mind to be lazy as a runner. You better be lazy if you are a senior developer or something, because by then at least you have a basic understanding of what the code is doing. So hiyo time hadi ukikuwa lazy, there's like basically no problem. So never copy code until or unless you know what that code is doing. That is only when you should copy code, when you only know, or when you know what that specific code is doing. The other thing is the naming conventions. For example, the camel casing, where, for example, in JavaScript, it's very common, the camel casing. Like, you following the naming convention is very important, because it's going to like train you in the long run. For example, if you get used to writing names or naming variables and functions according to naming conventions of a particular language, it's going to kind of train you to be a better developer, because by so doing, you're going to make meaningful names when naming various components in your projects. And that is a very important thing out here. So just learn how to kind of name components the right way according to the particular programming language that you're doing. And another thing is, don't overcomplicate code. I most of the times I find people who kind of want to make a very simple project very complex, which is not a good thing, because I've actually seen some code written by or one of the course that I'm doing. The person who is teaching that particular course is a very senior person, or a very senior web developer. And if you see the kind of code they write, it's very good, very simple, very clean, such that you find a very simple solution that, for example, I would have over thought about they end up creating a very simple line of code which is actually going to solve that problem. Actually, the reason why they end up making very simple lines which are solving very complex problems is because they have a variety, or they understand the language well, and by so doing they have a variety of different um, of different, do I call them functions? No, like they have a variety of different tools or different what do I call them? Or let me call them different, not parameters. Like they understand the language well, so they understand which particular solution or which particular object or which particular, I'm losing the name, or which particular form. I don't want to call them formula, but let me just use the name. Which particular formula you can use to this particular problem to kind of get the result that you want. So most senior developers don't make complex solutions unless you you want to write and maintainable code and stick around the company forever. So that is basically it. And now, maybe the last thing is that you should never give up, because again, I'm going to say this to you, that writing code is very boring. You are definitely going to like be spending a lot of time indoors, and definitely you're going to feel very bored, especially, and again, if you are an introvert, you're going to feel very bored. But the most important thing is you shouldn't give up. Just keep pushing and keep running, and in due time, maybe by the time an year also is done, you're going to have something that you can share out there. Yes, and maybe the other one thing that I can insist on is join a community. Look for people that you can join and learn with them. Look for study partners out there. If, for example, right now you're looking for a study partner, I'm available. You can team up with me. Right now, what I'm doing is backend development right now, and I'm mainly focusing on Postgre, SQL, and and Node.js. That is basically what I'm doing now, right now. So if you see this video, and that is something that you'd love to have a study partner on, I'm available. Yeah. So that's it for this video. I hope that we're going to make more videos soon, and I hope that you're going to create a community around this YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed and you have managed to watch this video to the end, I hope that you found it useful, and if you have, please remember to subscribe.